In this excerpt from the Ben and Ryan show, I asked security expert Justin Scott, why are the number of iterations a variable when encrypting passwords? Why not just default them to the highest value?
I had a question on the iterations. So I saw that you recommend 600,000 iterations if you're using the SHA 512. Why 600,000? And if that's the best, why is there not? Why is that not just the standard? Why would Adobe or anybody have options to change that number?
So with any system, originally the iterations were not a thing. You would just hash a value and store it in a database, and that would be that. Iterations was added as an option to be able to, as hardware gets better, you can do hashing more quickly. And so 600,000 iterations with SHA-512 is what OWASP recommends. That's their current recommendation based on today's hardware. And that number may have to be adjusted over time. And so as hardware gets better, faster, more networks of hashing systems become available, then that number needs to be increased over time. Several years ago, that number was lower. And several years from now, I expect it'll be higher. And this is why the newer algorithms like Bcrypt and Scrypt and Argon have work factor built in. So you specify a work factor, and then it will do all that crunching under the hood for you. So you don't have to manually specify, an exact number of iterations.
Would it be crazy for a company? So one of the big gestures that we've done at work historically over the years is attach metrics and monitoring and alerting to things that we just don't trust people to think about long term. And it strikes me as this could be an interesting little slice of the whole application workflow where you could wrap the timing around, say, password hashing and store it into a data, send it like a stats-D metric to a Datadog or a Graphite or something, and then literally set an alert that says, if this number ever drops below 700 milliseconds, 600 milliseconds, alert us as the engineering team, so that as the hardware evolves over time, we don't necessarily remember to actually go back and check this stuff, but we'll have something in place that tells us that it's time to reevaluate. Is that overkill? Am I overthinking the problem?
I don't think so. Something like this, once it's coded and it's buried, in a login procedure or a password reset procedure, as long as it's working, nobody's ever going to look at it. So having some automated metrics behind it that's going to give you an alert 2 years from now is certainly not an unreasonable thing to look at. And as far as the iterations and stuff go, it's a trade-off between user convenience and security. And you're going to find that in a lot of places. We want to make it convenient and quick for users to log in. So regardless of how many iterations we're doing, from a user standpoint, we still want the application to be responsive. We want them to be able to log in and have all those iterations done, typically between 500 and 1,000 milliseconds. So half second to a second, we want that process to finish. While also we want to make an attacker who might get our password hashes, we want to make it take them as long as possible to be able to crack those hashes or even attempt to do so. So there's a trade-off and a balance there. And if you're managing your own hosting infrastructure like our company does, those numbers shouldn't really change unless you do server upgrades and you've got more threads, faster processors. And so, if the CPU on your new server is 3.4 gigahertz, whereas your old server was 2.1 gigahertz, then you're probably going to get hashes back more quickly. And so you might want to increase those iterations to get back between that 500 to 1,000 millisecond range. If you're on a cloud provider or VPS or something like that, where you don't control the hardware and they do an upgrade and they don't tell you, and suddenly your containers are running on a much better server, then having an alert like that would be good. Because then that'll prompt you to go, okay, well, I'm on better hardware now, apparently, and so now I need to up my iterations a little bit.